Okay, great.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And of course, everyone will have access to recordings, and as in the last professional learning community, we'll have recordings and notes that you could access. And what we talk about today, everything will be in the notes with links and everything you need. So if you wait for the links, you can click on them and go to the sites that we talk about. So today we're going to talk about community need, and this is probably the most important. Every one of these critical issues is important, but this is very important because it actually defines whether or not you need a program in your community, whether it should even exist. So that's the context of what we're going to be talking about, and also as it relates to these job training grants. So before we go there, though, I'm going to turn it over to Nolan, and he can introduce some of the people who are on the call.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Well, we have our usual suspects, of course, are Mike Sinew and Stephen Fenton, and they're really the people who created HMTRI and created this PLC, and you know, we're standing on their shoulders in terms of our ability to do this. I've worked with them for I guess the past 30 years or so, off and on, but I joined the team later simply because they needed younger people to round out our demographic. So I'm pushing a birthday in a week, so I guess our demographic will move back up to all of us are not teenagers. Also on our team is Tim Hunter, and he provides amazing support to us in terms of all the technical and IT things. So if it goes right, it's because of Tim. If it goes wrong, it's because of one of the three of us, or collectively all of us, as Mike was mentioning. We're at sort of a critical number. What we usually did at the beginning of meetings was have everybody introduce themselves, and we thought that was very valuable in order to really form and sustain a community, so people could get to know who each other, you know, who everybody is. And so we're right at that cusp of people, so I guess we'll try that one more time. And so if I could ask two things. One, on your name with your picture, if you could add your organization or location, just so when people put a name to a face, they know, you know, whether you're in Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, or one of our other contiguous states, or at least what organization you're from. And if you can, throw up a picture or have your camera on so we can see who you are, because we're just not able to meet as often as we used to, and we're not having a face-to-face for a little while. So with that, I guess I'll just ask you, when we say your name, to quickly turn on your mic and just tell us who you are, where you're from. And but we'd love to hear your lovely voice and see your lovely face. So we'll start with Lisa Mellifrost.
My name is Lisa Mellifrost, and I am the Director of Workforce Development for People Acting in Community Endeavors, PACE, in New Bedford, Mass.
Thank you and welcome. Candace?
I am Candace Hatch. I'm with the City of Pittsburgh. I am the Administrative Analyst for the Community and Economic Development Division. I'm also the Administrator for Future Build.
Super, thank you and welcome. Jake? Mark? Yeah.
Hello, Jacob Markowski from the Auberly Employment Institute in McKeesport, PA, Region 3.
Devin?
Hi, everybody. Devin Hayes from Coalfield Development, based here in West Virginia. I'm the Partnership and Training Coordinator here. So.
And welcome. Sherry Calloway?
Hello, Sherry Calloway. I'm the COO of Honeybee Strategies and also an instructor here in New Orleans.
Okay. Diana Napier?
Hello, everybody. I'm Diana Napier. Sorry. With the workplace in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I am one-stop operation manager and manager of the environmental grant.
Super, and always good to see you.
Good
Libby?
to be back. Yeah.
Libby?
Hi, I'm Libby Cornell. I'm the CEO of Honeybee Strategies here in New Orleans, and I'm also an instructor, just like Sherry.
All right, so you're the queen bee, I guess, is that what they call you around there? Jason?
We both are.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a tough act to follow. Jason Iwaneski at City College of New York, Durango Workforce Initiative. We train folks for careers in infrastructure. Nice to meet everyone.
Good to see you. Jacqueline? You.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and we see your lovely Jay.
Lovely Jay. Here I go.
Okay. And who are you with, or where are you?
There I am.
Okay, there you are.
Hi. I'm sorry, but I missed the activity of what we were doing. I was trying to connect.
Okay. Well, we're just introducing ourselves. What organization are you with, so people can attach where you are or who you're with?
My name is Jacqueline Pina. I live in the city of New Bedford, Massachusetts, and I am the community liaison for the city and Old Bedford Village Development Corporation for Brownfield Job Project.
All right. Well, great to see you and welcome. And it was nice meeting you last week. Let's see. Rajan. I'm going to Rajan. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yep. Hi, I'm Reagan Eastman. I'm an emerging market specialist with the Excalibur Group. We're located here in Washington, D.C., and we develop workforce development programs for underserved population.
Okay. Does that include Congress or just the local citizenry?
Local citizenry.
Okay. Nicole?
Hi, I'm Nicole Turpin with Impact 7G. I'm a grant writer based out of Iowa.
Okay. What part of Iowa?
I'm in Dubuque, Iowa.
Dubuque, okay. So we have a bunch of Iowa people who have been involved with this for a long time. Welcome. Libby? Or I guess we had Libby, right? I'm sorry, I'm seeing the dogs on my screen. See, Jason, Amy, Penny. Amy, I guess, Penny?
Hello, my name is Amy Penny. I am with the Alaska Forum. We're located in Anchorage, Alaska, but we serve the statewide, and we primarily use our grant for training in rural Alaska for people to help obtain or retain employment. And right now we're focusing on a community emergency response training program. So we have a training tomorrow, actually, with 13 people coming in from rural Alaska.
Okay, great. And Amy's got an amazing new assistant in her office. So we congratulate her on that.
Thank you.
Teresa? Teresa?
Hi, I'm Teresa Anthony. I'm with Community Lattice. I'm the Director of Community Relations there. We're based in Houston.
Houston, okay. I actually used to live there just outside the loop and worked inside. And so, yeah, it's a long time ago, galaxy far away.
Okay.
Dr. Turner, or Dr. Robinson, I'm sorry. Joseph? We'll come back to him. And the fabulous Linda Morgan.
Oh, you are too kind. That is funny. I am unable to turn on my camera, so I apologize for that. But good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Morgan. As Nolan said, I am the job training coordinator for Region 5 in Chicago. And I won't be able to stay on the call for the entire hour, but I was able to get in with no problem.
Yeah, well, we voted last time, and I thought you made it, but evidently no. We'll continue to apologize for that. And,
no, it's okay.
Blame it, yeah.
But I got in with no problem this time. So thank you for that.
Okay, and again, we really appreciate the support from the EPA the coordinators, because without them, we wouldn't be back here. So we have Dr. Robinson. Looks like you're driving.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay.
Peace and love. My name is Joseph T. Robinson Jr. I'm in the state of New Jersey. Also, I'm headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina. but our ministry is a environmental faith-based training organization. We work with returning citizens and veterans with disabilities and those looking for a change in their workforce. So I've had some health challenges, but through the grace of God, I'm better now and looking to relaunch our Green Skills Training Program, which is dealing with solid waste recycling. And then we also have just incorporated a recycling renewable energy technology that we're trying to bring to the market.
Okay, well, that's super. It's good to see you again. Wishing you good health, and God needs you, and so do we. So we're glad that you're still around. So,
amen. Amen.
David Jones.
Good afternoon, David Jones from CDC at Tampa, Workforce Development, Director of Workforce Development and our training school, Tampa Vocational Institute. It was very bright and sunny here in Tampa.
Okay. Yeah, so Alaska will trade you some snow, I think, for some sunshine at this point. Good to see you and welcome. James Williams.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Williams. I'm the Training and Development Coordinator for the Worcester Housing Authority. We serve about 3,000 families. We're the largest landlord in Worcester, second largest housing authority in New England. I work primarily with our employees. However, I'm always looking for opportunities to help our residents as well.
Okay, well, welcome and good to see you. Deborah Love.
Good afternoon. Deborah Love from Alabama. Currently working in the Black Belt of Alabama and the Selma, Alabama area. We just received a job training grant, and we are looking forward to getting started. Selma's had a lot of disasters over the last few years, and the tornado that went through in January of 2023 created a lot of contamination, a lot of torn down buildings, a lot of need for redevelopment. And in order to do that redevelopment, they need people who are actually trained in the environmental field.
Okay, well, good to see you again and have you with us. Is there anyone I missed? Okay, well, I'm sorry?
I can go real quick. So I'm Molly McPhee with Groundwork Denver, Director of Youth Programs, and we are located in Denver.
Okay, you don't have to be quick. I'm limited on my screen of who I see and don't see, and it kind of rearranges itself, so apologize for that. Anyone else? Okay, well, again, we really appreciate it. Hopefully this helps bridge a little gap. If during the call or otherwise you realize, hey, there's somebody I really want to get in touch with, you can always go into the shared part and have either a personal conversation, get their digits, make their contact. Again, this is a very useful and helpful and wonderful committee and community where people really help each other. Feel free to ask questions as the discussions progress. You can either use the raise your hand icon, or you can leave a question in the chat box. And when we mention some of the links and things, they will either be in the chat box and they'll certainly be in the notes. So you don't have to scribble so furiously unless it's something you need right away. And so with that, welcome everyone, and I'll turn it over to Steve.
Nolan, and good to see everyone. Really excited to see all the new faces too that are here. By the way, Mike, Nolan, and Steve, the three of us, are the technical consultants. I'm actually located in Fort Myers, Florida, which is south of David, so kind of a neighbor of David Jones, who just spoke earlier. Nolan's in Aiken, South Carolina, and Mike's up in Raleigh. So we're not even in the same location, but we've worked together for about close to 30 years on and off with a variety of these types of projects. So it's, again, good to see all the familiar faces and all the new faces. My job here today is to talk about a few events that are coming up, and I want to just throw them on the screen so you can see them. Rather than just talk about them, I thought it might be helpful to see them. And you'll also get these dates in the notes. Those of you that are new will get notes. We hold these PLC meetings the third Wednesday of every month, and that's kind of reflected here in this kind of upcoming calendar. We also do a Connect newsletter. Those of you that have been around a long time are familiar with that. The new folks, that will be coming out shortly. And this issue will be the 47th and will be the establishing community need for Brownfield's job training. And then on May 15th will be the next PLC. And on that one, we'll be talking about reinforcing partnerships and employer relationships. Today, we're going to be looking at community need, kind of in advance of the application process. We're going to be covering some of these important topics. Then we have 2 new webinars that we're working on feverishly to get done for these dates. May 28th will be one for basically aspiring grantees and other grantees that are going to be applying. This is how to build a successful job training program, and we'll talk about everything from recruitment, partnerships, community development, training, support, wraparound services, and placement and tracking, etc. So that will be on May 28th, and on May 12th will be the second in the series. It'll be writing a successful job training application. And that's kind of, these are scheduled kind of with the application being dropped in mind. And we're expecting that the RFA will be released sometime in late May, early June. And so we've kind of arranged our timeline to kind of meet with that drop, which once it's announced, it's like 60 days and before you the application's due. Linda, you have a question or comment?
Just real quickly, a comment, more so early May than late May. We're anticipating the RFA if everything goes well. So could be just a little bit earlier than late May.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. So it's coming. We knew it was sometime probably in May, but so yeah, start looking at
Linda,
I
assume Linda that it's still going to be 60 days to respond.
It may be a little longer, but that will be in the interest of the applicant, of course, but it may be a little longer, but that will all be flushed out soon. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up that it may come out just a little bit earlier than late May. So you don't want to, I didn't want anybody to waste time or to look for it later when it's already been out, or not have their information, not starting to gather their information earlier.
Right. Excellent. Okay.
And if I may ask you a question regarding the Brownfields 101 and 201, will you have promotional material to hand out, or that we could just submit to potential applicants? We can draft it on our own, but I wanted to know if you had any that would be available that we could just send out.
Yes, KSU will be marketing the webinars, and so they'll have a series. One is just a overall, here it is. Here's what's going on, and then they'll have a more detailed one that has the agenda and approximate time, so people can tune into the webinar, all or in part, whatever they need.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I will piggyback off of what you all are going to send out.
Right. So we'll send that to everybody, but it'll be coming out through KSU tab.
Okay. Okay, great. And of course, we'll let you guys know about any timelines. So just stay tuned.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. And so those 2 webinars are coming up, and then on June 19th, the PLC will revolve around the request for application review and ranking criteria. And then in the Connect newsletter on the 28th of June, we'll be looking at landmines that can torpedo job training applications. And then the do's and don'ts on July 17th. And then the Connect newsletter on the 28th will be more of a wrap up. The application will probably be submitted by then. And so what's next? So we'll be talking about that. And then on the 21st of August, we're planning a all grantee meeting. It'll be virtual this year. Last year, you might remember it was face-to-face in Alexandria in May. This year it will be in August, and it will be around the theme of resources, discovering resources that can help aspiring new and existing grantees. So we're looking forward to that. And then September 18th, that PLC will be kind of looking forward and things to do at that point. So this is kind of the calendar, what it looks like for the next several months. I wanted to also mention the Florida Brownfields Association will be holding a annual conference on June 26th and 28th at the University of Florida in Gainesville. And scholarships are available. You don't have to be from the state to attend one of these conferences. So just wanted to give you a heads up about that. And I don't know, David, are you still on? And if so, do you have any other information? David Jones, are you still there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Oh,
About the
okay.
training. No, I don't have any information to provide.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, I wasn't sure if you did or not, but it'll be up in Gainesville and in June. So just wanted to let folks know about it. Okay, thanks. Then lastly, just kind of a heads up, the Department of Labor, the OSHA Susan Harwood Grant Program. Some of you may know about it. Some of you may not. I know some of you know about it. They're going to have a national webinar on how to prepare a competitive grant. These are grants that are awarded to nonprofit organizations, to excuse me there, and they award grants for training, capacity building, and curriculum development. It's a really good, worthwhile program, and if you're maybe interested in finding out more about it, this webinar on the 30th would be a good opportunity for you to explore it. There's a registration link that's going to be in our PLC notes, and you can also go right to the Susan Harwood Grant Program and register as well. The interesting thing about that program is it's been around for quite a while, and they three of our grantees, Honeybee Strategies, who's on here. Congratulations to Libby and Sherry. They were awarded a Susan Harwood grant last year, as was Sustainable Workplace Alliance and an organization called TWIN in Charlotte, North Carolina. That TWIN stands for Training to Work in a Niche Industry. Dr. Tanya Thomas runs that program, and they're all fantastic folks. Sherry and Libby have been around with EPA grants for a while, and with the Susan Harwood grant, it's another excellent opportunity for you. The other thing that I think would be helpful if you're interested in it, if you go to this site, you can click the link and find out who all the 2023 awardees are and what they did, and kind of get some ideas. Might be helpful for you to pursue. So that's just a few of the things up and coming. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, if not, I'll turn it back over to Mike.
We occasionally get questions of interest to people who are inquiring about the program or interested in the program, may not be familiar as many of us are about it. And we try to include some of those questions in every one of our little sessions. So Nolan, you want to
right. So here's the questions that you wanted to ask but didn't, or did ask, and now we have an answer. And also I want to just recognize and welcome Paul Salmons. He's been a powerful force in this whole endeavor and industry, and so good to see you, Paul, from Recycle Force, and say hello to all your peeps. Okay, so here's what question some of you had. I was locked out of the last PLC session, and are there notes and a recording of that session that I can have or get? And so again, for the 1500th time. We apologize for the technical problems that we had last month. We learned a few things. More than half of our participants were locked out. And if you missed that or any other PLC, you can access recordings and post-session notes on a YouTube channel that we will post into the notes. But it's basically www.youtube.com /@KSUJT-tab. So a lot to remember. So we'll put that in the notes and make sure that you can get there. So we have videos of us not doing well in our training. So we have a few too many ums and uhs and ahs and all of that, but it has a complete recording, transcript, and we have post-session notes that have a little more detail than what we talked about. The next question was, will the EPA RFA or request for application change this year, and when will it be posted? So a release date hasn't been given, but as you just heard, we are anticipating that in May, possibly late May, maybe even a little earlier. We expect it to be posted on grants.gov, and we'll also post it on the KSU JT tab website. We'll send notices to all of you, the PLC participants, when the RFA is issued, because the time frame is short. So the applicants usually have 60 days and only 60 days to complete and submit the application. And for that reason, it's essential that you start your grant application preparation now, pretty much, because many of the evaluation criteria require more than 60 days to prepare them and provide an adequate response. And so again, it's a process that you need to start early, and some of the activities in it have a much longer cycle than 60 days. So in order to set up those relationships and boards and those things, you're going to really need to start now if you haven't already. The next one, if the RFA won't be issued until late May, how can I begin preparing a response now? And we suggest that using the FY24 guidelines and frequently asked questions and preparing for the fiscal year 25 application. And so we will post a site where you can download the fiscal year 24 job training RFA. And essentially they're pretty much the same. They follow the same pattern, even though there's one or two details that have changed for this year. And we also have some frequently asked questions, and we'll make sure we include a site where you can go to those Brownfield frequently asked questions about the job training grants. And so again, it's a process that many of you have been through and successfully, obviously, because they have programs here, but look to those as being sort of models of what kinds of things they're asking and what kinds of things you need to respond to. The RFA is going to essentially be the same, and there's a few changes that have been released early to help inform you if you wish to apply. And so first, if you're applying or reapplying for an EPA JT grant, past grantees must affirm that they do not have an open JT grant. If the current EPA JT grantees with open grants wish to reapply for an additional grant, they must demonstrate that they have drawn down and dispersed funds to at least 50% of their current grant by June 1 of this year, 2024. So it's not just you've drawn them, but they have to be dispersed and distributed in order to meet that guideline. The second significant change in this year's RFA relates to the selection of targeted communities. And so applicants will be allowed to form coalitions. Applicants may, but are not required to propose forming a coalition to carry out their Brownfield job training program. Applying as a job training coalition could allow the job training provider to recruit, train, and place students into environmental jobs, especially in rural areas where the geographic area is larger. So again, recognizing the difference in geography for a lot of the programs, this helps support that. A job training coalition is comprised of one lead eligible entity that partners with one or more non-lead eligible entities. The lead entity is the applicant that submits an application on behalf of the coalition members who may receive sub-awards. And Mike's going to address that a little bit later in today's presentation. And the details regarding this changes can be found at the EPA website, and we'll post that to the notes, and it's in the recording. Okay, as we develop our job training application, if my organization is successful in obtaining EPA funding, can we charge the cost we incurred and/or consultant to prepare our grant application? And so the simple answer to that is no. Okay, so the costs for preparing your application are not an allowable direct administrative cost, and consulting costs are also not chargeable to the grant. So again, you need to be, healthy, wealthy, independently funded to apply for the grant. And if you get the grant, you can't back charge that. So the cost of entry is not allowable under the grant. Can I apply for grant funding if the www.sam.gov account is not active or is in the process of being updated or reactivated? Again, there's a number of requirements. One of them is that you are registered with the sam.gov account system. And so your organization must have an active account in www.sam.gov in order to apply for funding. For more information how to submit an application, the grants.gov website has an applicant training page, which includes a series of videos on various aspects of the submission process. So again, make sure that sam.gov account is current and up to date, because if that slips out of date, you slip out of the queue. As we finalize community assessments and select a target community, are we required to inform the target community of our intention to apply for Brownfield Job Training Grant as part of the application process? So it's not required, but you're strongly urged to work with the neighborhood groups in the proposed target community. Start early by attending town hall meetings, neighborhood advisory council meetings, church functions. Be prepared to discuss your intentions to apply for an EPA job training grant and would appreciate community support. So community-based organizations can help with application development, including sources for non-environmental training, that aren't covered under the Brownfield Job Training Grants. Remember, there are specific things that are covered in terms of technical training, but a lot of the wraparound services and soft skills aren't covered under the grant. So you really need those community organizations. In-kind contributions, that can include equipment or even potential training facilities. Community awareness and recruitment assistance, and insight related to the local social, demographic, and economic conditions. So again, these community entities are the ones who know the community. And so you don't want to keep them in the dark. You really want to work with them and make them your partners. So again, if you have any other questions, feel free to contact us. And we'll have websites up. You can contact the three of us through the KSU JT tab program. So any questions or? Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to star of our show, Mike Sinew, for community needs. Mike.
Well, thanks, Nolan. A lot of those questions are really appropriate, not only for people who are thinking of submitting a grant this year, but for people who have grants. And some of the things we're going to talk about will apply to both some new grantees that we have, and people who've had a grant for a year or two. We're going to talk today about community need, and we're going to talk about how it relates to it. Now, today in this PLC are kind of the cliff notes of what might appear in the Connect newsletter that you'll get in a week or so. The post-session notes will be in more detail that I'm going to be able to talk about today. So we've got 3 levels of detail. We've got what we're going to talk about today, and then the notes will give you the links to all of the URLs that we've been talking about. And then when you get a chance to read Connect News, that'll be even more detail about community need. The reason we're starting off with community need, it's really the first thing that in the evaluation of grant proposals that comes to light. And it's really important whether you're an existing grantee or an aspiring grantee, because if there's not a need in your community, why do the grant? I mean, this is the very basic fundamental of this program. An EPA wants to know that there is a need for this program, and that later on, of course, you're going to have to demonstrate how you're going to address the need. So when you look at the RFA, and it'll be pretty close to what it was last year, and I'm really encouraging all of you who are thinking of applying to go to the RFA from last year and look it over, because essentially you'll be responding essentially to the same RFA. The weighting may change a little bit, maybe not, but sometimes that changes. But your ranking criteria, what happens is you have threshold criteria, which generally gets you onto the next level that you're qualified to apply for the grant. And then you go into the ranking criteria, which is really the meat of the grant application. And you're required to respond to a series of questions. And they assign points to this. Last year was about 210 points. And they go through all of these questions, and you need to respond to all of them, of course. And if you write an acceptable proposal, they'll be ranked. Now, I think last year there could have been more people who had got grants, but they didn't have sufficiently suitable applications or complete applications to be funded. So you want to really follow those guidelines when they come out, but start now and go to last year's, especially with the news that the RFA may come out earlier rather than later. So you'll be prepared. Shortly after they come out, of course, EPA will have a webinar also explaining the grant application, and we'll be in future PLCs and Connect News, and in our webinars, we'll be addressing that application and what you need to do. So getting back to community need, the demonstrating to EPA that there's a need in your community, they break it down into a community description and then a labor market demand. We tend to go a little deeper for a couple of reasons I'll explain. We break it down into community assessment and labor market assessment. And that those are broader terms and dig a lot deeper into the communities you're going to be working with and the employers that are going to be hiring your graduates. So let's talk about identifying the community. They call it community description. We call it community assessment. You have to find out where are the deserving, the communities that are underserved in your general area. And of course, a good place to start with that is a program called CGIST. It's basically CGIST it stands for Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool. And the background on CGIST is that right after President Biden was elected, one of the first executive orders that he signed was Executive 1408, and it basically said and initiated the Justice 40 movement. And the Justice 40 movement was that federal agencies will focus about 40% of their efforts in certain areas on disadvantaged areas. And those efforts, when they define what are those federal efforts that the federal government are going to be using, EPA falls into that. And of course, environmental Brownfield Job Training falls into that. Essentially, EPA needs to address 40% of the benefits to disadvantaged communities. And of course, our program, the job training program, basically focuses 100% of its efforts into disadvantaged communities. And then, of course, you're going to ask the question, what's a disadvantaged communities? And this is what this applies to all federal agencies. So the question is, what is a disadvantaged community? And EPA has been ahead of the pack in that they developed a mapping program called EJ Screen, and that identified communities that were disadvantaged and collected lots of environmental information on it. But that was an EPA mapping model that had been done for 5 or 6 years prior to Justice 40 coming out. So all of the different agencies they were asking the White House, you've got Justice 40 and you want us to give 40% of our effort in this to disadvantaged communities. Well, you have to define those for us. So the Council on Environmental Quality, which is in the executive branch, came out with a mapping tool, which they've revised a couple of times, and it's now in pretty good shape. And they take a lot of the information coming out of the EPA mapping tool, and they combine it with information and mapping information from other agencies. And they've come up with this model that it's commonly called CGIS, the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, that everyone could use no matter what agency you're in, and it will define disadvantaged communities, and it gives you a whole lot of other information. It's very similar to what EPA had developed previously in EJ Screen. It basically took a lot of the information from that and combined it into this big model that everyone can use. And the reason I'm mentioning it, it's not a bad place to start. If you're just starting out a program and you want to apply for this grant, you want to go to the CGIS model, and it identifies very easily. You could put in your state or your rural area, which whatever type of target communities, whether it's a city, whether it's a state, or whether it's a community, you could put the zip code in and it will show you on the map. It's very easy to use. One of the first screens that comes up will show you that this is a disadvantaged community. So it does qualify for EJ 40 right off the bat. You'll have communities like St. Louis, which almost the whole town is a disadvantaged community. So it's very easy to identify that. It also gives you all kinds of information, census information, drills down to all kinds of demographics. So what I would do if you're just starting out is go to your state and go to CGIS and start putting in the data. It's very easy to use. They just ask you to put what area you like to use, and then maps will come up and they'll be shaded, and then you can get all kinds of data. And I would recommend this for people who have grants now, or whether you're thinking of a grant or you just got a grant. Go to CGIS and see what the community you're serving, how the Council on Environmental Quality and the White House considers this as a Justice 40 community. And of course, the URL will be in the notes, so you could just link on those. But it will identify where you want to focus your efforts. And as I said, it's just a good place to start, and only to start. Mapping tools are exactly what they are. They're tools. They're not the end all to determining your community, where you want to work. Now you have to start looking at what I call the real community assessment. Once you've identified areas that you think you would like to train in, you have to start saying, okay, is it feasible to really train in this community? And the next place to go is to start to see what kind of federal programs are already in the communities you're considering. So you've kind of narrowed it down with the mapping program to several, and now you want to start seeing, are there cleanups going on in certain communities that might overlap with the communities you're thinking of? Are there challenge grants, the environmental justice challenge grants that are out? What activity is now going on or being proposed in communities that you're considering looking at? It's really important in this program, I think, to locate your communities that you're serving with other communities that are working in the same area. And I'm not just talking about federal programs, which provide opportunities as far as funding goes, but I'm talking about social services. What kind of social services are going on in that community? What kind of private sector projects are being planned? Is there going to be, are there HUD activities going on? Are there housing developments? Does HHS have programs going? Are there local social service organizations in the community that you're thinking of targeting? Are there, if there are social service organizations or community organizations, that's a really good sign that this is where you want to be, because they're going to be able to help you later. This is why we call it community assessment, not just community description. If there are social service organizations in the same community you're going to be training in, chances are they're going to be able later on to provide you additional leveraged assistance. And we're going to be talking about that in the future for retention and for training that EPA does not provide. So if they're clear across town or on the other side of an area that you're considering, you don't really want to be away from them. You want to be close to them. So look for those social service agencies. You really want to look for, where are their community centers? If you're going to be training, you want to have your students in that target community be able to get to your training. And you may decide to do your training in the community, which is even better, that you're planning on training. So if there's a community center, if you're on the west side of Chicago and you're on, say, Lake Street, there may be a huge community center on Lake and Western. And you could go to that community center and you could look to see if they would partner with your program to where you could provide training in situ in the community, so that people are not going to have to bus across town. And that brings up another issue. You have to choose a community that fits all the other things I've just talked about, but also students have to be able to get to the training, or you're going to find your retention rates dropping really fast. So all of these things, it's a gigantic puzzle in assessing the community that you're going to be zeroing in on. Are there social services? Is there transportation? Are there facilities? Perhaps a fire department that might have a training pad where you could do a fit up. They might have equipment and all these things. And again, when I talk about community need, you think I'm talking almost about partnerships, but all these things tie together. Your community need, if you do a good community assessment, you're going, when you get to the partnership part of this application, or the partnership part of this program, you're going to have a really good feel of what's in the neighborhood that you're working in. What kind of partners are there? What kind of facilities are there you may be able to train? Whether or not your students are going to be able to get to training. And then lastly, are they going to be able to get jobs? And this is, of course, the purpose of the entire program, which we're going to just talk about in a second. If you're graduating all these students with screened, motivated, trained, have certificates, but they can't leave the community, or there are no jobs where they could access them, what's the use of the program? So you really have to, again, look at the entire picture. And that's why we're starting off with this whole idea of community assessment before we go too far into this program. So as I've been talking, we're talking about drilling down. We're identifying the community first. Then we're saying what kind of activities, whether they're cleanup assessment activities, what kind of other development programs might be there, what kind of government money is coming in, what kind of social services are coming in. Now you've got a good feel that there's this particular area, say it's south side of Chicago that you feel you want to work in, and now you're going to say, okay, we've got it pretty well narrowed down to this particular part of Chicago. Now you really have to get into the community. You're going to have to go in and start making contacts. And I said, all of these other things can line up, but if nobody's interested in your program in the community, what good is it? You're going to, when we start talking about recruitment and screening later, who are you going to recruit and screen? And so you now have to start talking about faith-based organizations, community influences, who in the target group, you've narrowed it down to one or two really good communities that you want to work in. Now you have to go into those communities and do the hard work and say, okay, you know, who are the people we need to talk to? And to be honest, it's often the faith-based organizations in that community. It's the community influencers. They're going to give you the real dope on the community. What kind of gangs are there? Are there rival gangs in this community? How motivated are the people? What are their feelings towards programs that are funded by the federal government? What is the attitude? Would they accept training? Is there an attitude, a negative attitude in the community? Is there a big drug problem in the community? You're not going to find that on any mapping program. And you're not going to find it even when you start talking to, you may start to find out if you're talking to some of these other people, particularly social service organizations in the community, but you're really going to find it when you get into the community and you start talking to the influencers. And when we start talking about recruitment, assessment, and screening, those also, they're going to be the people you're going to be working with. So we're, as you see and follow my train of thought, we're going from general to specific, and we're drilling down and drilling down, so that finally we're going to be at a spot where, okay, we've got a place that we know we could work. There are facilities there, we can get there, and we've got community support, and they're willing to work with us. Now, this is going to make your partnership development, which we're going to talk about in future PLCs, a lot easier, because you're going to be able to go to these people as partners. Now we start talking about, well, before we get into labor market assessment, any feelings that you all have about community assessment that I've been talking about? Have you found that to be correct when you're working in your communities? Any feeling? Now, because you choose a community doesn't mean that people outside the community can't participate. You know, that's certainly true. And some of you have different types of programs. Paul, for example, has he's working with ex-offenders, and so he's taking people from all communities in his program. So some of the things I said might not necessarily apply to his specific program, but for some of you, it definitely will. Any feelings about community development, how you're choosing your target communities and what you're going to do there?
Mike, I dropped the CGIS tool in the chat box. I mean,
great.
it will be in the notes, but if they want to take a sneak peek at it, it's there.
Great. Paul, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think it's, and I know everyone understands this, but I just have to share it, is that we can't do this in a vacuum. It takes a collaboration, and that's, why Mike keeps stressing community development, because as many services and programs that Indianapolis, Indiana has, there's still gaps of underserved people. And if you want to know where the gaps are, you can talk with the other providers and they'll share, most of them will share with you their specific target market. And there's gaps all through there. And that's what we try to do, is find the way we're set up is we want to service the people that are falling in those gaps. And sometimes those are, and that's our model. And our model is not one size fit all. We're set up to deal with participants and clients that have the most challenges and obstacles. But if you can join a coalition, if you have a coalition in your area for nonprofits, call in, and there's so many valuable resources and information there. I would encourage that interconnection or connectivity with the nonprofit groups. You can also work with the city. If you do happen to have philanthropy in your area, and check out the organizations that they're funding also. And in this day and age, I think we have to have a layered approach because, funding, it appears, is getting additional requirements on funding. And if you can stack your funding, then you're not totally reliant on one source. And to Mike's point, going back to community development, there's so many service areas that are open. It's just identifying which one are you best equipped to service, because the need is out there. It's just we have to have the infrastructure to support that specific target population. And what we're doing now, which is new for us, is that we realize for some reason we find ourselves at the ground zero, especially in our new location in East Indy. It appears we're at ground zero of the clients with the most obstacles and challenges to succeed. So we call it extending the runway. We have an ABC model. We're any jobs. We're employment social enterprise. So not only do we provide program, but we're a work-based reentry program. And then we have our recycling side, which is our business side. So we can pay the wage, but we're extending the runway. And what that means is, normally we go any job and then into the free marketplace, a better job and career, but some people need more time, more stability. So we're collaborating with other nonprofits and employers that better understand our client needs. And so they have more transitionary support before they go into the free job marketplace. And that's really starting to, we have several people placed now, and that appears that that's going to be the additional step that's needed before they go in for that career job. If that makes sense with everybody.
What's nice, Paul, is that you're embedded in the community, your target community, basically, now with your new facility. Yeah.
We're when I say ground zero, we're literally in the middle of the location, and access is so critical because the bus lines don't go. You may find a perfect place, but if you're not accessible to your clients, and then that's a whole nother challenge. But we're literally in East Indy where the need is, and so people can get to us through the bus lines and even walk to our location.
One time I worked with a community college, and there was working with disadvantaged people, and the community college was on the high end of town and everyone was on the opposite, and they couldn't understand why they weren't getting a lot of interest in the program. Well, you find out too late that you have to look at these things, and that this all goes into this whole idea of community assessment.
And
It's
we're
not-
also, correct.
Go ahead.
And we're also only 2 miles from our Justice Center campus. And so, and we know we're in ground zero just because if you look at your, if you do serve justice involved population, you can look at the crime statistics in the area and know exactly. But again, you have to have the infrastructure, you have to have the right team, and those that have experience in that. And we promote from within as a mentoring function that really connects well with our clients. So again, that's a little different than if it's a non-justice involved, but it appears that those that are underserved all share a common residence area or region. So it's just, what we do. And now we can, in our new location, service twice the number of people on an annual basis than we did before. And we're a lot more accessible even in this area.
Now, in Paul's case, he's got a facility where he's self-contained. It would be similar to a program like Nelson Mandela Training Center in San Francisco. But you may very well have your offices in downtown, and your training community is going to be out. What you may want to consider is looking for those community centers or even churches. Community centers are great. It might be a safety center, a police station, or a fire department where you could put on training. No, we're talking about 20 seats. So don't have them come to you if you're able to arrange you going to them. So if you're in a community and you're targeting a particular group of people and they're going to be coming from that community, see if you could, and there's good transportation to that community, see if you can use a community center. I'm sure a community that would have you coming into their community and improving the future of their students would be happy to let you use their facilities for training. So just consider that rather than having them trying to tromp across town. And again, this is going to affect your retention rates, right off the bat. When you call it, we seem to be far off of describing community description, but this plays through. That's why we call it community assessment. This is going to go through the entire grant. And in terms of your retention rates, your screening and your recruitment rates, it's going to flow right through the whole thing. So keep all of those things in mind. And even if you have an existing program, and you find that most of your students are from a certain neighborhood, see if you could do some of your training in that neighborhood and see what kind of response you're getting. And I think you'll find it as pretty positive. The second thing, when we talk about need, and EPA talks about need, community need is the other side of the equation, labor market demand. And of course, we call it labor market assessment, not labor demand. It's too easy to just start getting Bureau of Labor statistics to come up with, oh yeah, there's a demand, and here's the standard job descriptors, and there's a big need, and you could demonstrate it without leaving your office, and when you're writing a grant in 60 days. We look at this much more higher level of detail, and not a whole lot different than what we just talked about in community assessment. In labor market assessment, you want to, again, go from the general to the specific. Okay, and when I mean going to the general, it's okay to use some models, and there are some models. There's an EPA model, and there's one I really like that I think, whether you're new or existing or aspirational grantee, you may want to check this out. It's called Fence Line Data, and we'll have the links to that in the notes. Fence Line Data it's a private nonprofit. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to locate facilities that are polluting in communities, and they wanted to give the addresses, the names of the companies and their addresses, and exactly expose what they are producing. And not only that, is if there have been any fines against them, they got them listed. If there are any violations, they've got them listed. This is a great general place to start going when you're looking for potential employers. And I'm talking about going from using mapping models, general to specific. There's another one that's an EPA one called Cleanups in My Community. And again, we'll have the links in the notes. Cleanups in My Communities does kind of a governmental thing of what I just talked about, talks about what polluters are basically in different neighborhoods, and gives the general public an idea of where the brownfields are, where the Superfund sites are, where the need might be. But I really would suggest going to this fence line data, and you don't have to log in. You could just go in there and put your zip code in, just for the heck of it. Just go in there and put your zip code in and see if you've got someone emitting toxic materials in your backyard. I mean, it's kind of interesting just to see. You'd be amazed what's in your neighborhood. You could also look up something like 3M. If you go in 3M, you could look at all their facilities and what kind of violations and what kind of fines they've had to pay. It's a great kind of voyeur account where you can check out different industries, where they're located, and what they may be doing to your neighborhood that you don't even know about. Now,
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Mike, I put both links in the chat box too,
Great.
in case somebody wants to peel them off now.
Great. I would go to fence line first and just click on it. You don't have to sign in, just click on it, and you'll be amazed at how much data is there. And addresses. Now, why do I bring that up in when we talk about labor market assessment? Where do you think your graduates will go? These are people who have a problem and they may need people. And it's really a good place to start. There are also people who have a corporate consciousness, and they're going to be the ones that may have special programs that will hire graduates from your program. So again, this is a great place to start. See where they're located, and you could overlap that with your target community. So you could essentially, if your target community is 60, 68, you could put that in, and then you could see what industries are surrounding your target community and get their addresses. And then you may want to approach those people. That would be a good start, and see, one, suggesting that you're starting this program. Would they like to participate? Would they look at your graduates? Would they be hiring? As you zero in, and we're talking about drilling down from general to specific, see if they will participate, perhaps as instructors if you have a program. Now, you have to remember, if you apply now, you're not going to be training for a year from now, but and they can't tell you we're going to hire graduates or not, but they may say, well, we've got an environmental department, or we actually have a team, or we have an emergency response team, and we'll look at your people. And then if you get that kind of response, you ask them, would you be interested in perhaps some guest lecturing, or would you be happy in training, or would you be a partner? And again, we're talking we haven't gotten past this first evaluation criteria, but a community need. But what we're doing is we're setting for the stage for writing the whole rest of this grant. You're developing your Rolodex now that will be used in partnership development. It'll be used in curriculum development, because if you find some of these employers that say, I'll look at your students, but they have to have this particular certificate, or we want them to have confined space, or we want them to have something, they're all going to have HAZWOPER, but we want them to have these specific trainings. Okay, you can do that if they'll look at your students. So it's going to impact your curriculum and will certainly impact your partnership development. They might be interested later on in providing stipends to support some of your students, or part-time jobs to some of them. And the ultimate is they might look at your students as employment opportunities. So this is where what we call community assessment becomes really important in developing your Rolodex of potential employers. And a good place to start, as I said, is go to these mapping models, just like you did in the community assessment, and then now start drilling down. And when you say drill down, what do we do now? Well, now you start going into people who might hire graduates from your programs. Organized labor is certainly one. It's at the top of the list. In labor states, you may have pre-apprenticeship programs that many of our grantees have, where they can get into a pre-apprentice program. They may have, again, they may identify facilities where they could do training, some of your students. So you want to find out who the local managers are of labor unions, particularly if there's a big project of planned unit development going on, or some major operation, something going on in the city. They're revitalizing a particular area, or they're revitalizing a brownfield, or not even a brownfields. They may be hiring students, and they may have project labor agreements, which we talk about later. You want to identify those organizations who will be hiring. You not only want to talk to the people in City Hall, because the thing about people in City Hall, they're not going to be hiring students, but the business managers may very well be letting out the contracts. And particular case in point, this was in Rochester, I believe, where Paul he was connected with the mayor's office and was close to the people that were letting out contracts, and asked to be attend the meetings. And the question arose at these meetings, okay, you people want city contracts. Are you going to hire people from our job training program? And of course, you've got all the contractors there who are trying to get points and trying to get contracts. They may not be official contracts, but they say, well, we'll look at your students. We will look at your students because we want this job. So that's why you want to get into the mayor's office, particularly the people who have to do with letting out contracts. If you're very fortunate, you can get them writing into those contracts labor agreements. That we've had mixed results with that. Sometimes they have requirements that you hire locally, but we found often those contractors will skirt around some of those agreements where they'll say, we can't find any trained people, but it turns out that they've just posted something in some obscure building somewhere. They're not genuinely looking to help students. We've had other instances where people have gone, well, Janet Curley, who's unfortunately not on the call, approached Los Alamos and knocked on their door several times. And they at first didn't have a program, and then they decided maybe we ought to have a program. And now she's working with Los Alamos. You have to knock on the doors, particularly of people who may be polluting or may have fines, and approach them. You certainly want to look at temporary manpower firms. They have some advantages because they can indemnify your students. One thing that comes up later when we get into the nitty gritty is employers may be afraid of hiring perhaps an ex-offender. If they go to work for a manpower firm, that manpower firm will often indemnify the people that they send out to jobs. So it puts employers at ease. And there are manpower firms that specialize actually in environmental workers, particularly if there's a spill or something, there might be a big demand for people with HAZBOP or certification. So don't forget the manpower firms, recycling facilities, railroad yards, all of those things that just don't look at environmental remediation contractors, which you should also look at. But don't forget people like that. Don't forget painting contractors who may need people with confined space. I mentioned consultants, pest control people. And a good way to sometimes search for firms looking for people would just go Google. We used to talk about going to the yellow pages, but you don't do that anymore. You just go to Google and start searching for environmental jobs, environmental careers, environmental technicians, anything you could think of, people with HAZWOP certifications. What often happens is all of a sudden, if there's a hurricane or there's a disaster of some sort, there's a huge demand, a huge spike for people with HAZWOP disaster site certificates, all sorts of certifications. So definitely search out all of these. And as I said early on, it's best if you could find employers that are close to your target community. That's not always going to be possible. If it's not possible, you're going to have to figure out how your graduates are going to get from where they live to where their work is. And there have been cases where there's been support. There's even been companies who will pick people up and bring them back and forth and provide transportation. So those are things you're going to have to consider later. But again, closer they are to your target community, the easier time you're going to have. So as I said before, in this labor market assessment exercise, you're collecting a whole lot of data that's going to be used for a lot of the other things that you have to do downstream. But if you start collecting this data now, you'll have done the dirty work, and it's also going to be very easy for you to respond to the evaluation criteria. And when you get into that RFA from last year, you're going to see questions to explain this, explain that, and how are you going to do this. You will be able to answer those questions if you do a good community assessment and a good labor market assessment, and just kind of follow the routine that we've talked about, going from general to specific, and tighten it up and try to get develop as many relationships as you can early, because again, time goes really fast, and before you know it, you're going to be in the grant writing stage, and you want to have this information in front of you the best you can. So I think with that, do you all have a feel for what this whole idea is about labor community assessment and labor market assessment, and what you need to do in terms of trying to find out the community you're going to be working in? That's pretty clear. Okay, well, as I said, and we've always said, you can't start too early. Yes, Janella. Yes,
Oh,
yes, ma'am.
It's just thumb. She said thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you have any questions, you know where we're at, and you can call us. You can't start too early, no question about that. And for those of you that already have existing programs, it's not too early to just kind of tighten up your program a little bit and kind of check some of these things out we talked about. You might find that you've got employers that are looking for the people you need, and you didn't even know that. They're out there, but you're not aware of them.
Yeah, I was wondering, with maybe just a quick show of hands, how many people on the call are thinking or knowing that they will be applying for an FY 2025 grant? Is anybody on the call who's thinking of applying? I don't know if I'm seeing any hands or not. If you can just raise your hand or something like that, indicate.
Well, we
Okay.
have people who have general interest and people who have grants. And
Right,
I
but
think
I'm just, you know, like I
Mhm.
said, just wondering if anybody on the call right now is thinking.
There you
that-
go, Nolan. There
Yeah.
you go. For Jane Eastman from the
Mhm.
Excalibur Group.
Okay.
really need to start early. And those of you who just got a grant last year have a sigh of release because thank goodness you don't have to do it again this year. But it'll be time for a re-up soon before you know it. And you start after developing those relationships as soon as you can. This is a great time if you know people who are thinking of applying to apply, because since they extended this from 3 years to 5 years, I think there's lots of opportunities. There seems to be plenty of money right now. I don't know how long that money is going to last, but it's a great time to be applying for grants. It really is. Okay. Well, we'll send you some post-session notes, which will have a little more detail and some links and a little more detail on what we just discussed. And and of course, what we'll talk about next time, we could always go back and forth. And if you have some questions or ideas about this whole idea of identifying your neighborhood or potential employers, we could discuss that next time. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Is there a question there? Oh, no. Okay. Do we?
Oh, there's a question about, can we send this to the email? And it's from Regine. Do we have your email address? Oh, there it is. Yep, we can send it to you. Absolutely. We'll put you on the list.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll be sending out also notices about this 101 and 201. And we'll be talking also about the all grantee that'll be coming up. It's going to be different this year, which is going to be kind of exciting. We have a minute or two. Steve, you want to just give a quick highlight of what the all grantee meeting is going to look like this year?
Well, it's going to be resource-based. We're going to have a lot of organizations talking about resources that are available to you. And this includes aspiring grantees, new grantees, existing grantees. And so we're going to try and, have a lot of resources there available for you to take a look at and, consider in what you do. Some folks are using some of these, but not all. And so we just thought it would be a good idea to kind of talk about the whole thing. We're also going to have a trainer there talking about some trainer tips and some trainer resources and, kind of some best practices with training. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a little different, kind of a departure of some of the things we've done in the past. So there's going to be a lot of information there about resources, and we're looking forward to it. But that'll be August 21st.
Certainly want to earmark the dates.
Yes, we expect to see all of you there.
Yep.
We know who you are now, so we'll be sending you
We really
emails
wanted to have a face-to-face. We really did, but the budget wasn't there. So against our better judgment, we fought for it, but they didn't go for it. So this is probably the next year.
Plus the transition over from Eastern Iowa to Kansas State, there's just been a lot of things happening. So. Okay.
Okay, Steve, you want to stop the recording?
Let me see. Okay. Yes. Are you sure?